Hello, my dear primary 4 students. This is our last lesson in Concept 2 about fuels, where we would start shared activities. Throughout the concept, we explored different types of fuels and talked about how it's important to rely on renewable energy sources, such as solar energy, water, and wind. We also learned that we must reduce our use of non-renewable fuels. في المفهوم ده اتعلمنا عن أهمية اعتمادنا على موارد الطاقة المتجددة زي الطاقة الشمسية والمية والرياح، وإننا لازم نرشد استهلاك الوقود الحفري for two important reasons. First, to conserve fossil fuels as much as possible. Second, because using too much fossil fuels pollutes the air and causes negative impacts on the environment and human health. Now, we will evaluate what we learned and all the scientific evidence we gathered together. This will be in Activity 15, Record Evidence Like a Scientist. The activity is entitled Fuels and Road Trips. Do you remember this picture? This is the picture of the investigative phenomena, fuels and road trips. Now, we all can use all the information and evidence we gathered and think, how can you describe the fuels and road trips now? How do these vehicles depend on fuel while moving? يا ترى ازاي وسائل النقل دي بتعتمد على الوقود أثناء حركتها؟ How is your explanation different from before in Wonder lesson? Let's open book page 52 and answer the questions. Then we will discuss them together. I agreed with my students in class that each one of them would share an idea of what they learned, and these were the ideas we had gathered. Gasoline is the main fuel for different transportation, such as cars, trucks, and buses. Gasoline comes from oil. Also, oil is a fossil fuel. A small percentage of cars in some countries depend on solar energy for movement. يعني نسبة قليلة جدا من السيارات في بعض الدول بتعتمد على الطاقة الشمسية. The difference between cars using gasoline and cars using solar energy is that the first type depend on non-renewable energy source that can run out if we overuse it. It also produces exhaust and fumes, causing an increase in the carbon dioxide and air pollution. العوادم بتاعتها بتزود نسبة غاز ثاني أكسيد الكربون وهتسبب تلوث الهواء. The second type اللي هي solar cars, the solar energy is renewable source. It doesn't run out and doesn't harm the environment, but it's expensive. When I asked them how their explanation are different now, they said that they knew from the first term that gasoline is used as fuel for cars. But now they know more information about the source of gasoline, types of fossil fuels, how are they non-renewable source, and their impact on environment. Also, some of my students knew there are cars using solar energy, but they learned more about how solar energy is renewable energy source that is not harmful to the environment, yet it's expensive. يعني رغم إنه مش بيضر البيئة مكلف ومحتاج فلوس كتير. I'm also sure that many of you have added lots of information to their explanations. For sure, the evidence we collected during the concept helped you a lot. Now, we will go back to the question of can you explain, which is, where does the fuel we use every day come from? We always start the concept with that question. And in share lesson, we write a scientific explanation as an answer to the question using the evidence we collected. Do you remember how we write the scientific explanation? فاكرين طريقة كتابة التفسير العلمي؟ First, we write the claim. It's a one sentence that answers the question. It shouldn't start with yes or no. Next, we record the evidence that supports the claim. We must record 2 pieces of evidence or more. And then reasoning, يعني التعليل. We explain how our evidence is related to the claim. Remember that. Our claim may also be an answer to the questions we wrote at the beginning in Wonder Lessons. Now, we will all open the book and start using the claim evidence reasoning model on page 53 and record our answers. كلنا هنفتح الكتاب ونبدأ نستخدم نموذج الفرض والدليل والتعليل في صفحة 53 ونسجل إجاباتنا. Let me share with you the answers of my students. Let's see how Ali recorded his claim correctly and supported it with evidence. Ali's claim is car fuel come from the decomposed remains of sea creatures. Of course, if Ali said his claim, to some people, they might wonder how gasoline they put in their cars come from decomposed sea creatures. الفرض اللي كتبه عليه عن البنزين اللي بنستخدمه كوقود للسيارات أظن إن هو نتج عن تحلل كائنات بحرية قديمة ممكن يخلي بعض الناس شك. So this is our turn to present evidence to support our claim. Let's see the evidence that Ali collected. Ali wrote in the evidence, cars use gasoline as fuel. We learned this when we read the text of fuels and road trips. Gasoline comes from oil. We got this piece of evidence from the video about types of fuel. Oil is fossil fuels. This is the evidence we learned from the text of oil and water. Fossil fuels were formed from the remains of plants and animals that lived millions of years ago. Of course, Ali needs, after collecting evidence from all the scientific texts and videos we watched, to explain how his evidence support the claim. How does gasoline come from decomposed creatures? طبعا احنا محتاجين دلوقتي نثبت ان ازاي الأدلة دي بتدعم وبتأكد الفرض اللي علي كتبه. Let's read what Ali wrote in reasoning. Most cars use gasoline as fuel. It comes from oil. Oil is a fossil fuel that formed from decomposition of sea creatures. As the sea creatures died, their remains settle on the ocean floor. They become covered with layers of sediment and rocks. Over many millions of years, the sediment and rock built up more and more layers. The layer created great pressure and heat. This pressure and heat slowly turned the remains into oil. Ali really wrote in a very organized way. This will help him in writing scientific explanation. If your claims are also related to any fossil fuels, you must make sure while writing your scientific explanation that you clarify the definition of fossil fuels, also its formation and its types. لو الفروض بتاعتكم زي علي مرتبطة بأي نوع من الوقود الحفري وانتوا بتكتبوا تفسيركم العلمي، اتأكدوا انكم كتبتوا تعريف الوقود الحفري، ازاي بيتكون وايه انواعه. You can also say that it's a non-renewable source and record its different uses for getting energy. Take your time now and record your scientific explanation on page 54. Also, a group in my class shared their scientific explanation by drawing. تعالوا بينا نكمل الجزء ده عشان مهم جدا. ايه رأيكم؟ Is it possible to tell what we understood in the scientific explanation by drawing? Yes, of course. It works. Let me tell you how. ازاي نقدر نعبر عن اللي فهمناه في التفسير العلمي بالرسم؟ دي حاجة مهمة جدا. If you feel that you cannot write complete sentences, but you understand how fossil fuels are formed. You can express by drawing, just like my student Hannah did. Let's see her drawing. It shows that she knows how fossil fuels are formed and how the living organisms died and turn into remains and then are buried under the ground. After that, because of heat and pressure over millions of years, fossil fuels were formed. Well done, Hannah. Hannah also told me that she watched a movie that shows oil engineers and how their job is not easy. They may face some risky situations while searching for fuels. Do you know, Hannah, that technology can help those engineers in doing their job? هل تفتكروا ان التكنولوجيا ممكن تساعد المهندسين اللي بينقبوا عن البترول في أداء وظيفتهم؟ This is what we will learn together in one of STEM activities, Activity 16, Analyze Like a Scientist. Do you remember this abbreviation, STEM? فاكرين الاختصار ده معناه ايه؟ Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. STEM in action activities are very important because they can help you learn about the different jobs you may choose when you grow up. It also helps you in applying the information you learn in a practical way. تطبيقات STEM مهمة جدا لأنها بتقدر تعرفك الوظائف المختلفة اللي ممكن تختار واحدة فيهم لما تكبر، وكمان بتفهمك إزاي بعد لما تتعلم معلومة تقدر تطبقها بشكل عملي. One of STEM applications we will learn about will be through oil drillers and underwater robots. It's an activity. دي من التطبيقات المهمة بتاعة STEM اللي هنتعرف عليها دلوقتي، وهتكون من خلال نشاط بعنوان حفارات النفط والروبوتات تحت المية. This is a digital activity we will learn about through our science textbook. Let's open it. Do you remember this picture? Look at it carefully. We talked about it in concept 1. This is Mars rover Curiosity. دي عربة استكشاف المريخ Curiosity. And its design looks like a car. It's equipped so that it can collect images and data and send them back to scientists, in addition to a robot to control it remotely. Well, if this is on Mars, is it possible in the same way that there are robots like giant drillers that can extract oil from ocean floor? And what would its mission be? هل يا ترى بنفس الطريقة ممكن يبقى فيه روبوتات زي الحفارات العملاقة تقدر تستخرج النفط من قاع المحيط؟ ويا ترى مهمتها هتكون ايه؟ To answer this question, we will start reading the first part of the text in our science textbook, Technology and Safety. We will all stop at the sentence and a machine that pulls oil upward. As we read in the text, oil is found between sediments and places between the rocks at the ocean floor. Here comes the role of oil driller that Hannah was asking about. Oil drills work on a rig, يعني منصة, meaning a piece designed in the middle of the water and has many equipment to help oil drillers in extracting oil. منقبين البترول بيشتغلوا على منصة في مكان مصمم وسط المية ومجهز بمعدات خاصة للبحث عن البترول. How is it done? The first thing that oil drillers do, identify a specific location that has oil. لازم يلاقوا مكان فيه oil. Then they use long drilling pipes to make a hole in the ocean floor. They have strong drillers that can cut through the layers of hard rocks. يعني حفارات قوية بتقدر تخترق طبقات الصخور الصلبة. Once the driller reaches the oil, it is replaced with a pump and a machine that pulls the oil upward. Well, until here, we knew the role of oil drillers. What other ways can technology assist with keeping oil drillers safe? In other words, how can robots help to reduce the risks of this job? يا ترى ايه المشكلات والمخاطر اللي ممكن تواجههم اصلا؟ وازاي الروبوتات ممكن يكون ليها دور في حلها؟ We will explore this together while we read another part of the text. The first problem oil drillers may face is that some deposits are too deep for humans to dive down to investigate. Here robots can take over. الروبوت اللي يقدر يغوص لأعماق ما يقدرش الإنسان يوصل لها. Also, they can be remotely controlled to adjust parts of the drilling pipes. يعني نقدر نتحكم فيها عن بعد وعشان في معدات بتحتاج ضبط أو صيانة. These robots are equipped with video cameras that send images to a computer on the oil rig. The second problem is that missions of the oil drillers have many risks. They can be exposed to explosions, leaks, and other dangerous chemicals. تاني مشكلة إن مهمة المنقبين فيها مخاطر كتيرة جدا لأنهم ممكن يتعرضوا لانفجارات وحرائق لو حصل تسرب للنفط أو لمواد كيميائية خطرة. Therefore, the use of robots is a safe way in the job of oil prospectors. I want you to think of other ways where technology can help us to keep oil drillers safe and other works in the different jobs safe and secured. You can discuss with each other or with your family members and share your opinions with us by scanning the QR code on the screen. Now, let's move to the last activity. Activity 17, evaluate like a scientist. Review about fuels. Open book page 55 and let's read what we are asked to do. Think about what you have learned so far about fuels. In the space you have in your book, first discuss the characteristics, advantages, and disadvantages of different types of fuels. Then, explain renewable and non-renewable energy sources. يعني عاوزين نفكر ايه مزايا وعيوب كل نوع من انواع الوقود. يعني مثلا الوقود الحفري والوقود الحيوي ايه مميزات وعيوب كل واحد فيهم. Then we explain the renewable and non-renewable energy sources. I can share with you ways to organize your thoughts. In class, we can think together in groups. One group will be responsible for the advantages and disadvantages of fossil fuels. Another group is responsible for the advantages and disadvantages of biofuels. After we write our thoughts, we gather and discuss what we wrote. Which of them are renewable energy resources and which of them are non-renewable energy resources? Maybe some of you might ask me now, what should I do if I am in the fossil fuel group? What are the ideas I can write? You can write the definition of fossil fuels, how it was formed, what are the disadvantages we said, whether in its use or its impact on the environment, and its advantages. The same for biofuels group. اكتبوا تعريف الوقود الحيوي، ازاي يتكون، ايه العيوب اللي قلنا عليها سواء في استهلاكه او في تأثيره على البيئة، وايه مميزاته. The biofuels group would do the same. ممكن كمان نجهز أفكارنا في الكشكول من خلال جدول مقارنة زي الجدول اللي استخدمناه قبل كده. ده شكل الجدول اللي تقدروا تعملوا فيه comparison between fossil fuels and biofuels. You will have time now to write down your answers and your thoughts and any question you may have on page 55. هسيب لكم وقت دلوقتي تدونوا إجاباتكم أسئلتكم في صفحة 55. If you still have questions like my students, I encourage you to search for the answers. My students still want to know if biofuels have any impact on the environment like fossil fuels. How are living plants converted into fuel? I told my students that one source we can use is the Egyptian Knowledge Bank. We can go back to the career episode in term 1 where Mr. Ashur taught us how to make an account on the EKB. ممكن نرجع لحلقة مستر عاشور في المهارات المهنية عشان نعرف نعمل حساب على بنك المعرفة وندور على المعلومات اللي احنا عايزينها. Now we have finished this concept about fuels. We learned the key vocabulary. Let me show you the key vocabulary that we covered. The key vocabulary of these concepts are fuel, fossil fuels, generate, energy efficiency, renewable, non-renewable resources, pollution. We also learned about the different types of fuels, the way they are formed, their uses, and their impact on the environment. Get ready for concept 3, renewable energy resources. Think about ways we can use renewable energy to generate electrical power, and how will this bring us closer to the explanation of the anchor phenomena, water for energy. Thank you all the scientists of Primary 4, and see you soon.